So after Celebration, there was a very strong shift musically for you, both sonically and as well as execution in regards to the mixing and mastering. What was kind of the change there?
To me, that was more me getting back to me. Because, like, if we're keeping it 100, right, like, the records for me that were staple records in my career were always aggressive content. So whether that's melodic, dating all the way back to the Tri Blues days, or that was Nothing, which was produced by Spontaneous, or if that was the intro to God's Plan 1, which was produced by Spontaneous, or if that was Do I Scare You and the Foot Soldiers, or if that was I've Been a Foot So, like, I've always been known for the aggressive record. And Celebration was not that, because at that point in my life, I was really in a celebratory phase, because my life had taken a turn for the worse with the crash, the financial crash in 2008. I was dead fucking broke, dealing with label issues, and I kind of turned my whole life around and got married and had a kid on the way and a bunch of shit. So Celebration was very reflective of my life at the time. But when I'm in it to win it came, I wanted to get back to that aggressive brand of music. And so that's why records like Problem and I'm About My Business and Ambition and these records came. But I also wanted to create a project where you heard some really good rapping on some really current shit too. So then that's when records like Bartender and Tell 'Em Nag and Victory and those records come. But largely due to you, that project feels the way that it does, because I was gonna go with Tell 'Em Nag as the first single, and you were the one that was like, nah, I'm about my business. Yeah. And that was a smart decision, because I'm About My Business is probably like this. Also, 2012 was a weird time. This is a time where people were somewhat streaming. Like, you got to think, Pandora was really the only streaming service. Apple Music didn't exist.
No, Spotify was brand new.
They were a European brand.
Yeah, I know that. I remember having it in the UK.
Yeah, and so they were like a European streaming service. Apple Music didn't exist. Tidal didn't exist. None of these things existed. So people were still buying records on iTunes at the time. And I'm About My Business is my best-selling single in my entire career.
Well,
you know what I mean? So thank you.
No, I appreciate it. I just want to circle back real quick, kind of because we're about to start on the newer music, but towards the tail end of Celebration, because that song with copyright in Planet Asia got scrapped, you ended up doing a remix with your childhood friends. So the Ions were on that.
Yeah, we had an Ions remix.
So, and Chaos is a member of the Ions, and you had a diss record against him in 2004 on the Uno Entertainment mixtape.
Yeah, we patched it up at that point. Like, when the Uno Entertainment mixtape came out, I was 22, man. So, when Celebration was being made, I was like 27, 28. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We were kind of growing up and maturing a little bit, and we figured we could get over our shit, and I did. And so at the time, what people don't know is that we were working on an Ions album and mixtape.
That's right.
During this time. In fact, if we're keeping it 100, Celebration was supposed to come out in 2009. We pushed it back so we could work on the Ion shit. That's why Celebration didn't come till 2010.
That's right.
So we put out the God's Plan 2 shit in January of 2009, and then started full-fledged pretty much working on the Ion shit. And of course, that ended up not working out because of issues between Chaos and the rest of the group.
Well, and because the hard drive crashed, the same reason why we ended up losing the copyright Planet Asia features.
Yeah. We lost a lot of the Ion shit in that hard drive
40
too.
sessions.
We lost something crazy, a bunch of Ion shit too. And then that just kind of spun out of control because, and I'm not saying this to be like negative about chaos and shit. Like, that's not what this interview is about. This interview is just about telling the truth and telling my truth. And at the end of the day, I felt like at that time, like chaos was really on some defensive shit. And I didn't understand it because, look, man, aside from the 2 diss songs that I have against him and a couple of banters that we've had on the phone or online, I've never really done anything to him. And I've never understood where his animosity for me came from. I've never understood it. Even his own explanations don't necessarily make sense to me. Like the first time around, he said, well, it's because you dissed the Ions and you were stealing my raps. And I'm like, well, number one, on Melodic, I said the former member of Ions. I never dissed the Ions. I just simply said I'm not a part of that group anymore. And the whole heart behind that was I was trying to separate myself from the group and establish myself as a solo artist. It wasn't a diss to the Ions. And then the second time around, and then the biting lyrics shit. Like, come on, man. I never stole a fucking bar in my life. Like, that's fucking crazy. If anything, niggas steal from me. And I'm not talking about him. I'm just talking about people in general. Like, I've never stole a lyric from anyone. And then the second time around, it was more like banter. And it was during the celebration, God's Plan 2, Ion's mixtape album sessions, that, certain things were being said, I guess. And, we're very much a joke kind of crew. Like, we get jokes on each other. That's how we've always been, snapping on each other. And I guess when other members of the group snapped on him and I laughed, he felt like we were all in some conspiracy or something to destroy him. And he told me this. And I never, even after that, we happened to have patched it up. And he ended up having to do some jail time. I went and visited him in jail. I put money on his books. Didn't really speak to him after that. And then next thing I know, there's another diss record out. I still, to this day, do not know what I did to that man. I don't. But it is what it is. At the second time around...
Yeah, fuck Daniel Gibson Part 2.
Yeah, the second time around, I figured I was gonna wash my hands of that relationship from the jump. Like period. Like, completely. Because... I'm the type of person, if I don't understand where the problem came from, it's hard for me to resolve it. I don't understand where that problem came from. I don't feel like I ever contributed to that problem other than responding to shit. And so, yeah, man, we just always had this like weird relationship post high school that I just never quite understood. So, yeah, okay.
So in regards to kind of how that came to be, you're the person that actually introduced me to D-Berg. So you can kind of explain that whole...
Yeah, so I there was an artist that I did a feature for. His name is John Gill. And we did a remix to the Drake I'm on one shit. And it was called I'm on 10,000 or I'm 1,000. I'm on 1,000, something like that. And he invited me to his studio in Pomona to record that feature verse. And I met D-Berg at that point, and he mixed it on the spot, and I was fucking blown away by the quality. I was like, whoa, like, I gotta work with this guy. He was working out of his garage at the time. And he had a really affordable rate. So I immediately hit you, and I was like, listen, we gotta fuck with this guy. Like, we gotta figure out what this guy is doing, and he has to mix my next album. Like, we have to do, like, so I immediately started working on I'm In It to Win It. And I think I already had like a version of it, and I changed the whole version and shit. And found I'm About My Business, and found Tell Him That, and found all these records, Bartender and shit, and started putting it together. And D-Berg single-handedly changed how you and I even think about music or how you and I approach it, because I guess our approach has always been to have the highest quality music we could. That's always been the goal, within our budgets, of course. And so D-Berg achieved that and exceeded that within our budget. And so it was just some really groundbreaking shit in regard to how we would approach music going forward. And so that album came, it did really well. Yeah, it did really well. But there's a nugget that I always take from that album. And that comes from Ethan, from E From the Lost. There's a record on there that he loves called Problem. And at the time, or a little bit after this, we started working on Jam on the Box.
That's right, Ethan's project.
Right. And for you guys that don't know, Jam on the Box is a mixtape that was hosted by Snoop Dogg by a guy by the name of E From the Lost. He's a good friend of ours. You can go get that on Dat Piff right now. It came out, I believe, in 2013.
Well, it came out in 2012, but we actually did re-release a version without Snoop's vocals on it. It's on Apple Music.
It's on Apple Music.
Yeah, Jam on the Box, and yeah.
There we go. So, but they can get the Snoop version on Dat Piff.
Yeah, they can get the Snoop version on Dat Piff.
There you go. So, so there's a record on there called Problem. And I remember we were at someone's crib shooting the video.
Oh, we were shooting the Trippin' video.
Yes.
For a record that was on Jam on the Box.
Yeah, I featured on that record Trippin' and on another record on there. And we were shooting a video for it. And I remember Ethan saying, yo, I really fuck with your I'm In It To Win It album. But he said, you know my problem with you. And I was like, what? And, you know, Ethan was drunk at the time, so I didn't know where this was going. So I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you only tell niggas your highlights. You never tell niggas the pitfalls. I wish you would make a whole album that was like Problem. So I took this nugget of wisdom and I asked people around me. You were one of them. And I was like, yo, like, how do you feel about this? Do you feel this way about like my career, like my music? Do you feel this way? And you was kind of like, yeah. And a bunch of other people were like, yeah, like I love the ambition-based music, but can you tell us where you fuck up at so we can kind of know who you really are, and maybe I can use your fuck ups as ways not to fuck up. So that transitioned into the Raised the Fell Born to Succeed album.
Got a clique full of shooters. They won't let me